everyone. Welcome to the 64th episode in our AI and You podcast series. Today is Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, and I'm your host, Vicar Saidi. I'm a computer scientist and engineer, a lecturer, and a consultant. I'm also the author of several books. My most recent book is about artificial intelligence and is titled The Xenophobia. The Xenophobia is a speculative work. It examines what the world might be like if some of the more extraordinary capabilities forecast to be realized in AI over the next 20 to 30 years were actually realized today. Given the growing list of frightening existential threats humankind now faces, the book pays particular attention to the impact AI is expected to have on world affairs. The book is available in ebook format for those who prefer to read on a digital device, but it's also available in a high-quality paperback edition. The Xenophobia is available on Amazon, so I hope you'll take the time to read it and to leave a review. Amazon book reviews are very helpful for writers. I'm very interested in how science and technology influence world affairs and the big questions facing humankind. Studying at the confluence of the great disciplines of human history, political science and thought, international affairs, science and technology, offers a deep understanding and pedagogically important lessons of how advances in human endeavor have influenced and impacted civilization. I'm available to give talks on artificial intelligence and its related technologies, and on the impact AI is expected to have, or is already having, on our world. If you'd like to get in touch with me to arrange a web-based event or consulting meeting with your company or organization, you can find my contact info in the podcast notes below. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with others if you find the content valuable. Thank you. And now, on to today's podcast. In our last podcast, episode 63, I spoke about artificial intelligence and its potential to effectively mitigate xenophobia in society. In today's podcast, episode 64, I'll talk about artificial intelligence, cyber attacks, and the future of war. Let's get started. Over the past few years, technologically advanced weapons systems, including lethal autonomous weapons systems enabled by AI, have begun to take their place within the arsenals of most advanced military forces on the planet. As its capabilities and sophistication continue to advance at a dizzying pace, AI will soon be at the center of virtually every military command and control center as well, leaving many observers to openly question whether humans will have any role to play in conflicts of the future, conflicts that exceed human capacity to understand what is happening in real time, and therefore how best to respond. AI's emergence as a weapon of choice has taken hold in a steady, gradual manner. Over the past 5 years, cyber warfare initiated by both state and non-state actors has become increasingly common, and as a result, we can expect to experience $20 billion in related losses by the end of 2021. On an annualized basis, this is an increase of nearly 500% since 2016. In the past, in fact, since the beginning of human civilization about 12,000 years ago, war was a near constant reality of life, and peace was nothing more than a brief interlude between wars. It was a somber time marked by the burial of each side's war dead, and was a time to make desperate attempts to treat the wounded. all the while rearming and preparing more soldiers for the next phase of never-ending conflict. Our present reality, characterized by the previously described steady, steep escalation in the level of cyber warfare, is beginning to bear an uncanny resemblance to our historical reality of unending war, as sophisticated state and non-state actors probe and attack vital infrastructure, including commercial and consumer financial systems, critical health and hospital systems, electrical power grids, national security and early warning radar systems, sewage and water treatment plants, and virtually every commercial and government entity of merit or significance. Critical commercial, institutional, and infrastructure vulnerabilities are constantly being probed, with ongoing attacks characterizing the new norm. These attacks will soon be endemic, and the resulting economic costs will be both burdensome and enormous. The sense of national security that has come to represent an expected norm of life in Western developed economies will wane and will instead begin to resemble that of other parts of the world that have lived under countless varied threats for generations and centuries. Today, AI is transforming virtually every aspect of our lives, and so it's not at all surprising that this fourth industrial revolution technology will also transform how we engage in conflict. For the first time in human history, the invention of the steam engine that demarcated the dawn of the first industrial revolution enabled humankind to overcome its limitation on human strength. Now, once again, for the first time in human history, we are on the cusp of comprehensively overcoming the limitations of human general intelligence. And the combination of this ability with other advanced technologies will change our world in an unprecedented manner. Military engagements of the future will be far more efficient and intelligent than ever before, and they will be potentially far more lethal as well. The first major advancement in warfare in human history was the transition from hand-to-hand combat using daggers, knives, maces, swords, and other handheld weapons. This period was followed by the introduction of gunpowder and eventually by nuclear weapons. But the greatest invention of humankind in the last 12,000 years, our pièce de résistance, is unquestionably artificial intelligence, and it will transform future human conflict and life completely. Nuclear weapons will retain their ability as weapons of mass destruction, and as such will remain an existential threat. But the governance surrounding their deployment will likely be entrusted to an AI agent. Taken together, these developments will certainly make our world a far more dangerous place. In fact, most observers concede that a new arms race in AI-enabled weapons has already begun, and this is now an inescapable reality of our world. Threats of apocalyptic outcomes are no longer science fiction scenarios, but are increasingly plausible outcomes. Military command and control systems under the authority of AI can vigilantly monitor vast quantities of data, and are thus best placed to initiate war without human intervention or even confirmation. This loss of human agency could easily result in a conflict spiraling off into an apocalyptic direction from which we may be unable to return. Since the complexities surrounding the decision of whether to initiate conflict and in what manner is rapidly reaching a point involving analysis beyond the limits of human comprehension and processing speed, we will need to decide whether such agency should ever be granted to these command and control AI agents, or whether such systems can be disabled if and when the need arises. For example, American early warning radar systems distributed across America, as well as in the UK and Greenland, are networked and therefore vulnerable to cyber hacking. The vulnerability of this critical component in our security apparatus leaves America and its allies who depend upon the capabilities of these early warning systems open and vulnerable to cyber attack, probably followed by an attack by sophisticated weapon systems. This reality makes these early warning systems a rich target for an antagonist. For example, discovering malware inserted into the code at Fillingdales, an early warning radar system monitoring Russian airspace from England's northeast coast, could leave national security agencies in the Five Eyes Securities Alliance wondering, has the malware been placed there for espionage purposes, or is it a part of some forthcoming offensive operation? There may be insufficient time to properly attribute the discovered malware to the current antagonist or to the correct antagonist, particularly when decisions on how to best respond may need to be made quickly. Is the antagonist China, North Korea, or Russia? Or is it someone else? In such a tense situation, there may be no way to ascertain the answer quickly enough, and there may be insufficient expertise and time to decode the malware to determine its true function. This scenario has all the hallmarks of a disaster and could easily lead to a first use of nuclear weapons. In late 2020, Azerbaijan and Armenia fought over a disputed region in the Caucasus called Nagorno-Karabakh. The Azeris had a large number, perhaps as many as 200, of what are known as loitering munitions, while the Armenians had only one homegrown version of this weapon. These weapons, known as Harpy, were built by IAI, an Israeli high-tech weapons manufacturer. These autonomous munitions can fly to a particular point and then hover for hours until their target, most likely a mobile missile launcher, becomes visible. The Harpy then flies a kamikaze mission directly into the mobile missile launch vehicle. The technology gave the Azeris a decisive victory over the Armenians. Another worrisome variant of this technology are tiny but lethal swarming drones that are also entering the arsenal of national militaries, and some of these technologies may be difficult to limit to military use. They will likely find their way into the hands of so many nefarious actors around the world. As a result of these developments and their worrisome potential, the United States National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence is recommending massive new investments in AI-enabled lethal autonomous weapon systems to ensure that America and its allies are on the leading edge of such emerging AI-enabled battlefield technologies. A UN Commission on AI-enabled weapon systems wants all member states to agree that these weapons must remain under human control. But the consensus nature of the forum means any individual state can obstruct progress. This is precisely what is happening. Discussion and debate is unable to move towards negotiations, with Russia taking a particularly obstructionist position. Meanwhile, most major military powers have been unwilling to support a treaty banning such weapons, but have been more amenable towards discussions around their ethical use. Going forward, AI-enabled weapons will be an application of Fourth Industrial Revolution technology requiring a great deal of attention, since it is likely to be amongst the most destructive applications of artificial intelligence we are likely to see. Until next time then, this has been the AI and You podcast with author Vicar Saidi.